Soft fill should not be added to the bottom of the hole because the root ball will settle, resulting in excessive planting depth. In areas where the surrounding soil is dense clay, trees should be planted slightly shallower with 2 to 3 inches, 5 to 8 centimeters, of the root ball higher than the original grade. Soil may be added to gradually taper out from the top of the ball to the original grade, but it should not be placed directly over the root system. The exposed ball should be covered with 2 to 4 inches, 5 to 10 centimeters, of mulch. Adequate drainage is an important consideration in successful planting. Poor drainage, characteristic of heavy clay soils, accounts for many transplant losses. When planting large trees in poorly drained soils, it is best to select a species that tolerates poor drainage conditions, or it may be necessary to install a tile drainage system. For smaller trees, planting slightly above the original grade may be sufficient to allow roots to develop in better aerated surface soil. Do not put gravel in the bottom of the planting hole. It does not aid drainage. Water will accumulate in the finer textured soil above the coarse gravel layer until the soil is completely saturated. This is known as a perched water table, a condition that could potentially drown the tree's root system. Transplanting a tree involves the additional procedures of digging and preparation for moving. Adding to that, some species are easier to transplant than others. Because digging a tree for transplanting can remove as much as 90% of the absorbing roots, species that have a lower transplant tolerance should be moved only when conditions are optimal. If extra care is taken, some trees can even be moved during the growing season. When trees are dug from a nursery field, they may be stored in a protected holding area to be hardened off. New root generation may begin if stored long enough. Also, some leaves may drop due to reduced water availability, which can reduce transpiration. In general, the best time to transplant most tree species in temperate climates is in the early spring or fall. Many deciduous plants can be moved just after leaf drop when the moisture level in the soil is relatively high and the soil is still warm. Transplanting at this time gives the roots a chance to grow and begin to establish before the ground freezes. Some plants are more easily transplanted in the spring before bud break. Transplanting dormant trees reduces demand on soil moisture because transpiration is minimal. Evergreen trees are also more easily transplanted while dormant. Very large trees sometimes are moved in the winter when the ground is frozen. Heavy equipment used around the tree will do minimal damage to the surrounding area. If the outer 4 to 6 inches, 10 to 15 centimeters, of the root ball are frozen, it will be easier to move without damage. Frozen root balls require less wrapping, are more cohesive, and are easier to handle. Sometimes the tree can be pre-dug and thoroughly mulched before the ground freezes. The hole at the new location should also be prepared before freezing. The techniques used in digging vary little with species, size, and soil type. The procedures described here are for digging and transplanting large trees. The techniques are similar for smaller trees, which are easier to transport. With advanced planning, it is possible to greatly improve the chances of survival and increase the rate of establishment. This may be accomplished by root pruning the tree in question. Root pruning is the process of pre-digging a root ball to increase the density of root development within the final ball. The digging process severs existing roots and stimulates fibrous root growth. Root pruning may be repeated multiple times before the tree is actually moved. Each successive cut is made several inches out from where the roots were previously severed. While root pruning encourages growth below ground, top growth may be reduced. Before moving the tree, it may be necessary to tie as many of the branches as possible to prevent them from breaking during transport. When securing the branches, care must be taken to avoid damage to the bark. Potential tissue compression or limb breakage may result from tying the limbs so tightly that a sharp bend is created. When digging a tree for transplanting, the size of the root ball is traditionally based on tree caliper. Tree caliper should be measured 6 inches, 15 centimeters, above the ground line for trees less than 4 inches, 10 centimeters, in diameter. Trees more than 4 inches, 10 centimeters, in diameter are measured 12 inches, 30 centimeters, above the ground line. For trees 8 inches, 20 centimeters, or more in diameter, a rule of thumb for the width of the root ball is 10 to 12 inches, 25 to 30 centimeters, in diameter per inch, 2.54 centimeters, of trunk caliper. Thus, an 8-inch, 20-centimeter tree should have a root ball that is 80 to 96 inches, 2 to 2.4 meters, in diameter. The depth of the root ball may vary with the root growth of the tree. Root growth is deeper in certain species than others. Also, drier soils tend to cause deeper rooting. In general, a root ball depth of 30 to 36 inches, 76 to 91 centimeters, is sufficient. Depth can be less for smaller trees or for trees that are not deeply rooted. The first cuts around the perimeter of the root ball should be made with a sharp spade or shovel. A clean cut is necessary to avoid tearing or breaking the roots. If the ball is being dug with machinery such as a backhoe or trencher, the initial ball should be dug several inches larger than the final ball size. The shaping and final cuts should then be done by hand. As larger roots are located, they can be cut with loppers or a saw. Some recommendations call for sterilizing tools with alcohol or bleach before cutting to minimize the risk of transferring disease. While digging the trench, avoid standing on the root ball. The edge of the ball could break down and damage the roots. Once the ball has been dug to the desired depth, it can be shaped. The ball should taper on the sides, slanting inward toward the base. A root ball with a 9-foot, 2.8 meter diameter at the top might measure 6 to 7 feet, 1.8 to 2.1 meters, across at the base. The ball should stand on a pedestal of soil for shaping and burlapping before it is undercut. Place burlap on the sides and across the top of the ball. Pin the burlap together using nails, taking tucks to pull the burlap snug. The burlap should cover the full circumference of the root ball with a bottom skirt of burlap hanging over the pedestal. Pin this skirt of burlap to the ball after the tree is taken out of the hole. For additional support, large soil balls should be drum-laced with rope. The rope generally used is 1/2 inch, 1.27 centimeters, manila or double strands of 4-ply sisal. 2 loops are tied at the top and bottom of the root ball. These loops are connected through a series of weaves and tightened to stabilize the root ball. Care must be taken not to let the rope cut into the trunk of the tree. Very large trees are sometimes boxed on site before moving. The tree can be undercut once the root ball has been laced and secured. Large trees must be removed from the hole with a crane or other mechanical device. Chains or large slings are placed around the ball and attached to the crane hook. It is important that trees are not lifted by the trunk because doing so can cause trunk injury and serious damage to the root ball. Cables may be attached to the trunk for additional support and balance. Once the tree is out of the hole, the burlap should be fastened to the bottom of the ball. When transporting a tree to the planting site, measures should be taken to protect it. The trunk should be well padded to protect from injury. The crown of the tree may be loosely wrapped with burlap to minimize drying and/or wind damage. Anti-transparents may be applied but should not be considered a substitute for adequate watering. Keep in mind that special permits may be necessary to transport large trees on public roads. A tree spade is a mechanical device used to transplant trees. It encircles a tree and forces several large blades diagonally into the ground, forming a root ball. The blades can make clean cuts through the roots unless the roots get caught between blades. Mangled roots can be severed cleanly after the tree is removed from the hole. The tree is lifted hydraulically from the hole and can be transported vertically or tilted. Tree spades are available in various sizes. No attempt should be made to transplant trees larger than the size limitations of the spade. Although larger trees can be removed from the ground, transplant survival is not likely because the size of the ball must be proportional to the tree size. Centering the tree spade around the tree will provide a more uniform root ball containing the largest possible amount of root system. In sloped sites, the frame should be supported on the downhill side. Click on the play button to see a tree spade in action.
The TS-44 hydraulically tilts down and its frame opens up hydraulically to encircle the tree. Centering the frame around the tree will ensure that you get a uniform ball and gather in the largest amount of root system. In order to get an even-shaped ball, the frame must be set squarely on the ground before digging. If you are on a hill, the frame should be supported on the downhill side. The hydraulic spades are operated with simple hydraulic controls. With an oil tank of 18 gallons, the 44 series will deliver 2,000 psi and 5 gallons per minute worth of hydraulic digging strength to the spades. Each spade is lowered intermittently and in sequence into the ground. For safety's sake, please check with local utilities before digging your receiving pit. If you are digging in dry or hard conditions, retracting each spade a few inches and releasing the water valve will lubricate the spades and the ground with water from a 33-gallon water tank. When all the spades have reached full depth, secure the pressure plates and lift the tree out of the ground. The frame of the 44 series is designed tough to easily support and carry the ball weight of 1,170 pounds that typically comes with a 4-inch diameter tree. To aid in this, the TS-44 series has a hydraulic locking rear frame pivot for secure transport.
If a tree spade is used to dig the hole, it should be dug no more than 6 hours before planting, or it should be kept covered and moist. Also, an attempt should be made to place the tree in the new location with the same orientation it had in the original site. Tree spades are often used to dig planting holes. However, holes dug in moist clay soils with tree spades tend to be glazed on the sides, which can inhibit root growth into the surrounding soil. It is best to eliminate the potential for trouble by using a hand tool or other cultivation tool to break up glazed surfaces before planting. This method loosens the soil around the ball and helps eliminate any gaps that could allow roots to dry out. If tree spades are used for transplanting, care must be taken to obtain a vertical root ball. Planting on a slope can be a problem because the ground level will be different from the tree's original site.